For any team, the customer or user is at the center of everything you do. Understanding who your team supports at a deep level is critical to ensuring that what your team does achieves real value. In this episode of This Meeting Sucks, we are going to walk you through part 3 of the third phase in our MeetingMakers framework, aligning, focused on customers. We will discuss the importance of centralizing customers in strategic conversations and take you through our design sprint agenda template, which you can access for free on Session Lab using the link in the description. Putting the customer or user first ensures that whatever you do or create will add real value and achieve the desired impact. I'm your host, Lauren Green, meeting coach and facilitation trainer, here to help you unsuck your meetings one episode at a time. I've helped hundreds of professionals and organizations through leading inclusive, engaging, and productive meetings. And now I'm offering this podcast to help you do the same. Think of this podcast as an ongoing workshop, where each time you tune in, you'll get a bite-sized nugget of knowledge you can apply right away. If you lead meetings or might someday, you're in the right place. Let's make your meetings work. It was the first day that felt like spring when we held an innovation workshop for a local county executive team. The goal of this workshop was to generate ideas for the human resources team to consider in order to grow the next generation of local government staff. By the end of the 90 minutes, the 80 county executives from across all divisions had generated 11 viable recruitment solutions. How did we manage this? We used a design sprint process. Let me break it down. In tables of 6 to 8, participants were given a poster that included 4 steps. Step 1 was framing the problem. Participants wrote a question regarding a challenge or problem they wanted to address. For example, how might we innovate the workforce of the future? Step 2 was brainstorming. Participants were given 20 minutes to come up with as many ideas as possible without worrying about feasibility or barriers. Step 3, concept development. Participants were asked to select one of the ideas they came up with and work together to name it and create a basic sketch of how it might work. Step 4 was considerations and piloting. Participants identified what resources would be needed to roll out their idea and the metrics that could be used to measure its success. The visual template created a frame for participants to work through the process of framing, ideation, and concept development in just a few short minutes. A design sprint works in part because of the structure of the steps, and in part because limited time forces people to overcome or move past common hang-ups. It also serves as a team-building exercise because everyone is working on the same thing: how we can support those we serve. In other words, the customer or the user. Who is it that your team is ultimately supporting? If you're in the medical field, it's the patient. If you're an educator, it's your students. If you're on a software team, you may refer to them as an end user or customer. And if you're a part of a human resources team, it's other employees. And if you're a leader, you support both the customer and the employees who work in and support your organization. Understanding who it is that you support and your team supports at a deeper level is critical to ensuring that what your team does will achieve real success. The customer is who everyone on your team should care about and prioritize, and therefore, any conversations related to strategy should center around the customer. We will use the term customer throughout the episode, but please swap in the most appropriate term for whomever your team supports, whether that be users, employees, patients, or even community members. Meeting the customer's needs is every team's ultimate why. In times of conflict, anchoring back into the thing that we all care about, serving the customer, can support constructive conflict and creative problem solving. Over the past 2 episodes, we've focused on aligning the team around the past and the present. While these conversations may have been more inwardly focused on your team, you may have already been focused on the customer in these conversations as well. When it comes to aligning with the customer, We are going to focus on human-centered design and design thinking tools. In recent years, the field of human-centered design and design thinking have become a mainstream practice. As we'll discuss in a moment, these are not necessarily new concepts, but thought leaders in human-centered design have created tangible techniques that put the customer in center focus when creating or refining the projects or services of a team. My favorite definition comes from Luma Institute, which states that human-centered design is the discipline of developing solutions in the service of people. I like to say that human-centered design is a mindset and a philosophy, but that when we say design thinking, we're actually talking about the toolkit that accompanies this mindset. There are lots of toolkits out there when it comes to design thinking. We mentioned Luma, and they're one of our faves. In addition to Luma, we'll link to two other design thinking schools in the description, IDEO and Stanford D School. All of these programs have taken tools primarily used by facilitators and adapted them for wider professional use, which of course we love. Design thinking tools are simple, step-by-step processes that are easy to facilitate and apply across all fields. Hospitals are using them to improve the patient experience. Community advocates are using them to align services to meet community members' needs. While many think that design thinking tools are primarily for product development, we here at MeetingMakers have experienced the benefits of design thinking tools in developing services and processes as well. While we'll share what we can in this episode, we highly recommend self-study in these programs to build on the tools that you're going to learn. Our favorite human-centered design model is credited to both IDEO and Stanford D School. The model is 5 simple stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Let's break this down. The first step involves gaining an empathetic understanding of the problem that you are trying to solve, typically through research to understand people's experiences and motivations. This might include observing, engaging, and empathizing with users to understand their feelings, behaviors, and needs. The goal is to set aside one's own assumptions about the world in order to gain insight into users and their needs. Often, what a customer says they need isn't what they actually need. In the empathize step, you have to go beyond the obvious and look for the true needs behind the stated ones. What would Henry Ford's customers have said if he had asked them what they needed? Likely, a faster horse. Customers can't tell us what to make or do, but through inquiry, we can learn how to meet the needs behind what they tell us. In the define phase, you accumulate the information you've gathered during the empathize phase. Here, you analyze your observations and synthesize them to define the core problems that you and your team have identified up to this point. Once you have a solid understanding of users and their needs, it's time to start generating ideas in the ideate phase. Think outside the box, look for alternative ways of viewing the problem, and identify innovative solutions. This phase involves brainstorming sessions and other ideation techniques to foster creativity and surface a broad set of ideas. The prototyping phase involves experimenting by building prototypes that are shared and tested within the team itself and in other departments or small groups of people outside the design team. This looks different for every industry, but the prototypes might be scaled-down versions of the product or specific features found within the product. The goal here really is to identify the best possible solution for each of the problems identified during the first 3 stages. A prototype doesn't have to be something physical. A new workflow, for example, could be prototyped on a slide. A new application could be prototyped on a whiteboard. It's important that a prototype really be a pilot, something that doesn't take a lot of effort to create, but something that could test the idea and concept to see if it'll work before a huge investment is made. Rigorous testing of the prototypes, the last step, is crucial to understand how users interact with them. The model is drawn in a linear fashion. However, the process is cyclical. The testing phase will often lead to insights that redefine one or more problems, leading you back to earlier stages. Another model that demonstrates this cyclical nature of processes like this is Eric Ries's Build, Measure, Learn model from the book The Lean Startup. In Build, you develop a minimum viable product, MVP, to test business hypotheses with minimal resources. This aligns with the prototype phase of the human-centered design model. In Measure, you collect and analyze data on how customers use and respond to the MVP to verify these hypotheses. This aligns with the test phase of the human-centered design model. And in Learn, you interpret the data and decide whether to pivot the strategy or persevere with the current model and iterate accordingly. This aligns with the definition and ideation phases of the human-centered design model. So if we wanted to, we could combine these two models to create a human-centered design workflow that would go something like empathy, define, ideate, build, measure, learn, redefine, re-ideate. After the break, we will walk you through our agenda for a customer-centered design sprint, where we will apply a few basic design thinking tools to help your team get aligned around the customer and how best to support them by improving your existing products and services or creating new ones. You can find our free Session Lab template linked in the description, along with our mural, online whiteboard, or printer-friendly poster templates available for purchase. Hey, Meeting Makers, did you know that we are on season 4? That means there are 3 other seasons that you may have missed. In season 1, we give you just-in-time meeting skills, a crash course and meeting prep you can listen to in less than 2 hours to help you get ready to lead your next meeting. In season 2, Meet Smarter, Not Longer, we break down day-to-day meetings like weekly tag-ups, one-on-ones, and ad hoc meetings to help improve your and your team's productivity starting as soon as you finish the episode. And in season 3, a participant's guide to unsucking your meetings, we give you strategies for improving meetings even when you're not the one leading them. Don't have time to listen to a full season? Our season playbooks are available for purchase at makemeetings.work, that's WORK/store. Welcome back, Meeting Makers. Let's jump into our design sprint template. So remember the human-centered design model we just learned? In case you forgot already, it's empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And we're going to hit all of these steps in our agenda. The agenda at a high level takes a day, but you could absolutely break this agenda up into smaller parts that could happen over 2 half days or even multiple online meetings where you would tackle 1 or 2 steps in each meeting. But we're going to give you the whole agenda as if you were in person with your team for a full day. And it can be really fun to do this as a full day activity. It's definitely a highly active experience, and there is value to doing it all in sequence so that you really get a sense of the build if you can make the time investment. As in our other agendas, we do a welcome and kickoff from the leader. And this is an opportunity to invite participants to apply basic design thinking tools to improve their understanding of our customer and create customer-centered solutions. And in our Session Lab template, we've even included a helpful script. Then we go through the agenda and agreements. If you are the leader and the facilitator, you will do this part. Otherwise, generally, the leader will go through the agenda and agreements for the day. Just like in our other templates, we give a few recommended agreements. In this case, we're recommending Osborne's rules of brainstorming, which are to suspend judgment, be freewheeling, go for quantity, and build on each other's ideas. And you can actually look up Osborne's rules of brainstorming and find them. A couple of other agreements for you. One is this is a lab, so you can invite participants to think of this day as a lab. Don't be afraid to experiment and fail. And another principle is say it out loud. If you're thinking something, chances are someone else is too. So say it. Then we recommend, especially if people are new to working together, to do a brief introduction round. Name and role are usually enough. And if people already know each other, you can invite participants to simply share a hope for today's meeting. Now we're going to give you a warm-up that you can do. The warm-up is called Positive Disruption, and this is based on the Disruptus card game. So if you have the Disruptus card game, you can use the Disruptus cards, or we're going to give you a way to do it without the card deck if you don't have that. So the instructions are to invite participants to locate two objects in their surroundings. Then ask participants to create something that combines the elements from each object, either figuratively or literally, and then draw it on paper. And what they create should serve some kind of purpose or value. So for example, if you happen to have a bicycle and a toaster in the room, you could combine those to create an object that heats up and moves forward or has gears. So you're taking elements of these things and merging them together to create something. Perhaps a heated bicycle seat, for example. And then after they draw out what they have invented, they're going to share it, first starting with whatever their two objects were, and then ultimately, what is the purpose of their invention? We recommend doing a little bit of a reflection here. How did you approach this challenge? What mindset did you take? But if you don't have time to do a full reflection, then you definitely want to note that this is an exercise that helps prime thinking around innovation and customer focus. If you're short on time, it's also okay to just hear from a few people. You don't have to go around and hear from everyone. You can even have participants just share in small groups instead of doing a full round in the whole group. You could also just have participants share with pairs or in small groups in order to save time. The next thing to do is introduce design thinking, sort of like we did in this episode. It's important to familiarize the group with the design thinking model so that they can see the high-level arch of the conversation. So you could ask the group, has anyone ever heard of design thinking or human-centered design? If so, they could share a little about what they know, then clarify and add to their explanation. Luma Institute defines human-centered design as the discipline of developing solutions in the service of people, or you can change to a different definition that you like. I like to note that design thinking is a journey that starts with empathy. Show the model, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test, and explain that this process will serve as the arc of today's conversation. Now, of course, we're going into the first step, which is empathize. And for this activity, we've offered a persona profile activity. To start the instructions, you're going to let participants know that they will be using a persona profile template to create a fictional character who represents real people that your team or organization serves. Then take a couple of minutes to walk through the components of the persona profile, which includes name, role, perhaps tasks and activities for that person, their goals and their motivations, their fears and frustrations. You're really creating a character that people can relate to that represents who it is that they're serving. And then give participants about 20 to 30 minutes to work either individually or in small groups to build out this persona. Afterwards, invite individuals or groups to introduce their persona for about 5 to 10 minutes. All in all, we gave this about 45 minutes to do the full activity. Sometimes we actually pre-create personas through interviewing key leadership and a few members of the team in advance. AI can also be really helpful with that. The risk is that participants, if they weren't involved in the persona creating process, could reject and not like those personas. So if you have the time, we recommend doing this activity so people can really feel personally invested in the personas that they're creating. You can definitely customize your persona template with characteristics that are more unique to the customer that you serve. For example, if your customers are students, perhaps you include their major or clubs that they are involved in. If you wish to ensure that your customers are fully represented, then come up with qualities in advance based on existing or known customers and distribute them among the personas. So, for example, if your customers again are students, you might prepare a list containing the majors of all known existing students, and that will help participants to create personas that truly represent the students they are serving. Now we're going into the define phase. So for this, we're doing 5 whys. A lot of people have heard about 5 whys. It's often credited towards Toyota. And the purpose here is to get to the root of the challenges that our customers face and define the real problem we're trying to solve or the need that we ought to address. And you do this by starting with a problem and asking why 5 times. Note to participants that often the problem or challenge that a customer says they have is a surface problem. We need to get to the core of the issue to identify the best place from which to act. You can tell a quick story. We used it earlier in this episode. If Henry Ford had asked his customers what they needed and they'd never seen a car, what would they have said? You could invite answers from participants and then say, yes, probably a horse or a faster horse, when the real need is to go fast. That's what we're trying to do with this activity, get to the real need. Then you can walk participants through our 5 whys activity and template, starting at the top with a column labeled either observed need or observed problem. And if you have more than one problem or need that you're working on, create columns for each. Then we recommend demonstrating this. So start with one column and tackle it as an example. Let's say that our observed problem is a disorganized refrigerator. Answer from your own experience. Why do you think the fridge is being disorganized? Just one response. And then you can capture that response in the next row down, or just a sticky note right below the top one. Well, we just buy groceries all the time. And then you ask, why might that be happening? Well, because we have a big family. And then you could ask, why might that be happening? Well, now we've got into a little bit of a different territory, but you see what I'm getting at. But essentially, you are trying to go deeper and deeper and identify what's really at the root and land on something that you can solve. Spend about 20 to 30 minutes working individually or in the same small groups on a 5 whys chart related to their persona. Once they reach a closing or a stopping point, give participants 5 to 10 minutes to circle which why they think they might be able to design a solution for. They could circle as many as they like, but around 3 is recommended. As an option, you can invite a few participants to share some of their key learnings from this process. It's not important for all the groups to do a full share out at this phase. It would take too much time and it's not important for the process. Step 3, ideate. This is where we're going to do a how might we activity that is based on statement starters from Luma Institute. And I highly recommend doing training with Luma Institute. Their training is very comprehensive and they will take you through all of the activities and you'll learn and experience how to use them. So the how might we activity we're going to do aims to reframe problems as opportunity areas and to ideate solutions. The first thing that you need to do is come up with the question, hence the how might we. So here's how it works. Note to participants that putting the words how might we in front of a challenge automatically reframes that challenge as an opportunity. By changing the question's perspective further, we can brainstorm a whole new way of thinking. For example, let's say we are ideating around the challenge of going to the grocery store. The base question is, how might we improve the grocery store experience? But maybe you get more results oriented. How might we eliminate long lines at our grocery store? Or maybe a more life-changing approach. How might we create a shopping experience that changes people's lives for the better? Or evoking emotion. How might we make customers yearn to return to our grocery store? Maybe you get more action-oriented. How might we fight food waste in our grocery stores? Using metaphors, how might we equip customers to tackle their shopping list like a mountain climbing expedition? Or maybe even bring in an alternative company. How might Airbnb design a community-centered grocery store? Individually or in the same groups, participants generate as many how might we questions as possible using the 5 whys results as inspiration. Write these down on a flip chart or the virtual equivalent and invite participants or small groups to select one of the questions they like, which they're going to then ideate solutions around. And that's going to be in the next 20 to 30 minutes. So they should choose one of their questions and write it on the top of a new flip chart and start brainstorming ideas using sticky notes. If they have extra time, they can grab another question and ideate with that. We've given an hour for lunch in our agenda. Right after lunch, we have given an extra 20 minutes to finish up their ideation and choose one idea that they are going to prototype. Invite individuals or small groups to choose one or combine a few ideas that they like. They can choose based on their level of excitement and something they could reasonably take on as a new challenge. We did empathize, we did define, we did ideate. So now you have a bunch of ideas. You came up with questions and then you picked a question and you brainstormed ideas. Now you picked an idea and now we're going to prototype. For the prototyping activity, we are doing an idea poster. Explain that an idea poster is a way of articulating their idea in more detail so that it can be understood. You want to capture the essence of the idea in enough detail that it can be conveyed to the customer for feedback. There are many ways to prototype an idea, but a poster is a great option to quickly test a concept before moving forward with it. So you'll walk through the components of the idea poster, which of course you can grab ours and use it. And ours includes why this idea. So what's the big need that this idea will serve? Who it serves? Who is this idea serving? You could even reference the original persona. How it works. They're going to draw and write how the idea would work in practice. Needed resources, could be funding, personnel, tools. How might it fail? Maybe assumptions that we're making or challenges we need to overcome. And space for feedback for others to capture feedback. Those are the different parts of our idea poster. Individually or in small groups, you're going to invite participants to prototype the idea that they just chose. One idea poster per table. Allow 30 to 40 minutes for participants to create their posters and then prepare to share them. All in all, we've given this an hour, so that's plenty of time for a little bit of buffer. A few tips: participants may be intimidated by drawing, so reinforce that drawing does not have to look pretty and that by including visuals in their poster, more information can be conveyed. And if they really don't like drawing, then come prepared with a few magazines so that they can cut some pictures out. For the how it works section, most participants will draw an image and label it or create a process diagram. Now we're giving them a break, about 15 minutes. And again, after the break, we're going to present. And as we present, we're also going to introduce the 5th and final step, which is, of course, testing. And for this activity, we're going to do I like, I wish, I wonder. This activity aims to hear ideas and provide an opportunity for participants to offer feedback that can be used to improve the idea and iterate on a second version or prototype that could have higher fidelity to it. The instructions are first to introduce the feedback model. I like, these are things you like about the idea. I wish, things that you might wish for, so constructive feedback. And I wonder, ideas or curiosities for the group that's presenting. Next, invite each individual or small group to present their idea poster. Encourage groups to be concise in their language and take no more than 3 to 5 minutes. And as a tip, I recommend recording these just so that you can get a little bit more color and flavor from the posters. Sometimes people don't write a lot on their posters and they will speak to it better, and then you'll have that information after the meeting. After each group or individual presents, give the other participants a few minutes to share feedback using the I like, I wish, I wonder language. Capture this feedback at the bottom of the idea poster. I recommend asking the group that is presenting to do that capture because it's their feedback. And then continue this process until all the individuals or groups have shared and received feedback. To save time in larger groups, we recommend sharing feedback in silence with stickies or virtual stickies or even an online polling tool. But if the group is relatively small, this can be done verbally. We're nearing the end and it's time to talk about next steps. To help bring this to a close, start off by showing Eric Ries's Build, Measure, Learn cycle model from the Lean Startup. Note that with each round of building, aka prototyping, there is a measuring, aka testing step, and a learning step, so that the team can then consider whether to continue building or move in another direction. If the feedback they just got wasn't all that great, maybe the team wants to go back to ideation and grab another idea to prototype. But if they got a lot of positive feedback, they may want to create a next level prototype. If it's an application, maybe they do a little wireframe and test out that wireframe. I'll go back and say Luma Institute has a whole great toolkit of prototyping ideas that are higher fidelity than the idea poster. So it's a great way to build that out. Then invite participants to review the feedback that they have received on their posters. Participants could use some of this time to even adjust their idea poster or just create a list of next steps that includes what might version 2 look like, how will they test it? For example, do they want to do a focus group interview, survey? What will they consider indicators of the idea being viable? And when will they regroup to work on the next version? If you are just doing the design sprint as practice, then you do not need to do the planning next steps section. As a final step, we recommend that the leader do a few parting words to express appreciation and clarify next steps. So there you have it, meeting makers, our design sprint. Remember that while we use the term customer, you can change that to use the term user, audience, stakeholder, anything that best fits your organization, team, and what you are working on. If you've hung with us so far, meeting makers, you know that we have spent a lot of time on alignment, and that's because so many meetings are simply a matter of getting the team aligned, whether that's aligned on where we've come from, aligned on where we are now, aligned on who it is that we serve. And in the next episode, we're going to wrap up this alignment phase by focusing on aligning on our process. We can't wait to share it with you. And in the meantime, go make your meetings work. This podcast was written by Lauren Green and produced by Caitlin Murray. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few seconds to rate and review so future meeting makers can find our community. You can find our next Meeting Makers Academy workshop on our website at www.makemeetings.work/academy. Want help with your next meeting? Reach out at makemeetings.work/contact and we'll set up time to chat.